great to be back here on the fifth edition of AI and Intellectual Property. I'm here with Thanuki Goonesinghe, and we're going to talk today about licensing and commercialization of AI. A very huge, large topic, but we're trying to give you a snippet of what it means and why you should be concerned about this. So, Thanuki, let's give the audience a perspective of what are the key considerations when licensing AI technologies, particularly regarding intellectual property rights? Thanuki?
So I would maybe give about 5 to 6 pointers which we may have to consider closely. So the first thing is you need to identify IP ownership. Clearly define ownership of intellectual property rights in that particular technology that is being licensed, including patents, copyrights, trade secrets, trademarks. So you have to properly identify it and label it essentially. Then scope of the license. That section needs to look at the scope of the license granted, including whether it is exclusive or non-exclusive, any territorial limitations, and what are the permitted users of the AI technology. Then another aspect I would think that needs to be looked at very differently is the rights to enhancements and improvements. Especially that is to do with determining what the rights of the licensee would be regarding making enhancements and improvements or modifications to the tech during a license term. Also, confidentiality, trade secrets need to be protected. Proprietary information, trade secrets embedded within AI technology needs to be protected, and such provisions need to be addressed. Again, payment terms, establish rates, any upfront fees needs to be considered. Look at compliance with specific laws in the country, and also if this is a licensing agreement to do with something that is cross-border, then we need to look at those more closely as well. Close examination of dispute resolution mechanisms for something like this. Maybe don't consider litigation procedures. Look at alternative dispute resolution mechanisms for IP disputes. I mean, it's a way to go, and it's becoming very popular in most parts of the world. Even Sri Lanka, it's picking up quite a bit, and that's something that needs to be considered. And data privacy and security has to be paramount when it comes to AI-driven licensing. So I think that too should be considered a key consideration when it comes to licensing agreements.
So that's a lot of work, isn't it?
Yes.
So I guess when you build your framework, and you also need to, we talked about building a framework for data governance, and I think we also need to build a framework around licensing and commercialization of AI.
Yeah.
And it is not something which you can do overnight, but I guess multiple iterations of discussions in each of those topics you mentioned. And very especially, if there is a dispute, how do you resolve it? Right. And then you very rightly said, I mean, you can dispute, but you have to resolve it. So finding alternate ways of resolving those disputes are paramount. So do people in Sri Lanka or any other parts of the world, do they consider licensing agreements, or how are evolving AI platforms adopting licensing? Any thoughts on that, or do you want to discuss about this in another edition?
I think that's something that should be discussed in another edition, but I have actually been in touch with quite a few people who are jumping on the licensing agreement bandwagon, and they are doing that. And they are looking at I mean, see, I think lots of people are, since this is new tech, and they're not really sure how to go about it, especially in our part of the world. We have this habit of doing business on, um, you know, just knowing people
Relationships,
and just relationships,
relationships.
right? And often that leads to a lot of issues later on. And I've had people speak to me and ask me, how do we put this down on paper? And I do think that now people are moving into it. There is a trend developing around licensing agreements that consider AI and tech, because yes, Sri Lanka, maybe we don't want to acknowledge it as much, but even though we don't have so much of that reflected here, there is a lot of work that is being done for other countries from Sri Lanka. So our minds are really developing tools and solutions for other parts of the world. And that is where these licensing agreements really need to play a part and should not be neglected.
So, viewers, my takeaway here is that while we are looking at a digital economy 2030 to generate an income of 5 billion US dollars, and bulk of it is going to be tech based, and a
Yep.
portion of would be in innovation. So those of you who are in startup, or if you're using AI as a component in your product, and if you're planning to go global, start having this conversation today as to how to license and how do you commercialize your AI innovations. So you may want to look around, talk to people who are familiar with this subject, get feedback, engage them on a consultative basis, and get the best out of it. Because when you have a dispute, then it is a no go for anyone. So all the investments you put in may not be realized. Right? So with that note, Tanuki, thank you so much. And I look forward to seeing you in the next edition where we're going to be talking about ethical and social implications. So, with that note, thank you again for being here. So, I look forward to seeing you around the next edition.
See you, Sujit.